I think I hate making clothes for The Sims. Before we jump into why I feel the way that I do about this, I want to talk a little bit about how clothing works in The Sims versus how it's going to be working in Life by You, because it is different. There is a little bit more nuance to this than I'm going to be discussing here, but basically in The Sims, this is how it goes. Each of your body parts works as a whole unit. You have a head, you have a top, you have a bottom, you have feet. If you open up the Sims 4 Studio and you export a mesh for a top, you will see it's not just the article of clothing, it is the entire top half of the Sim, basically. So that includes your arms and hands. If you make some changes to your mesh and then save it out and say that you have accidentally deleted a hand, you would think, oh, no biggie, it's a shirt. No, you now no longer have a hand because it is one single mesh. In Life by You, we have evidence to suggest that this is going to be different. In the announcement trailer, we saw a human going through different jacket selections, and you can see that as the jacket is changing, the shirt underneath is not. So, I believe that in Life by You, what's going to happen is all of the different articles of clothing are going to exist as their own separate meshes that we will then be able to layer over the top of each other, giving us so many more options and so much more to play with. If you're me and you have stupidly decided to make items that work with both, this presents some challenges. So what is the approach for this at the moment? Well, this doesn't mean that we can't make clothing items. They may need some tweaking, some scaling, some adjusting once Life by You is out because we don't know exactly what the proportions are going to look like and what all the options are that are going to need to be dealt with. However, I'm hoping that if you have an OBJ file, that will be able to be imported into the clothing creator and just adjusted from there. Really, the issue starts to happen when it comes to The Sims 4, because creating clothing for The Sims 4 is an absolute nightmare. Generally speaking, modding is a hobbyist hobby. Most of the people who are doing it are not professionals and probably just learn as much as they need to know to do exactly the thing that they want to do, which is okay for a hobbyist, that's fine. But if that is the situation that you're in and you decide to make tutorials to teach other people how to do it, it's generally not a good idea. Something that I've run into a lot in tutorials is the person explaining will come across a feature or a button and say, you know what, I don't know what this does. I just click this button and I ignore it and I move on. And that doesn't work for me. I've also seen a ton of tutorials that are using 2 or 3 different versions of Blender to do different things. And I think at this point it's just because they watched another tutorial that was possibly 5 years old and the person in that other tutorial was using that version of Blender for it. So they said, that's the way that you do it, and just kept doing it that way. I ran into this over and over and over again. Why do models have 2 separate UVs? Why is the second one bigger? I don't really know what it does. I just know that I need to click this button and click this button. Or meshes, when you export them and they have 4 different meshes and nobody seems to know the reason, and they say just make sure that your mesh has as many mesh parts or it won't work. Why? So I made a really crappy basic clothing mesh. I got it into the Sims 4 Studio. It wasn't good. I fought with the UVs. I tried to follow along the best that I could, but it was overall just a frustrating process. So I took a day off. Yesterday I did no modeling. I played Zelda. I went to visit a friend. I thought about all of the things that I was having trouble with and confused by, and just kind of worked through that process. And you know what? Today, I think I know how they work. And that's part of what it takes to learn things. Sometimes stuff isn't going to make sense right away, or you're not going to have all of the information and you're going to have to think about it. So in the long run, this is basically what this means. If I am going to create clothing items for use with Life by You, that means creating a standalone separate mesh for that article of clothing. I will then need to take that mesh and merge it with the Sims 4 mesh to create the entire piece. That means importing different files into Blender, that means joining things and deleting faces and creating cuts and doing a whole bunch of extra work that I'm really hoping will not be necessary with Life by You. Alright, so it's been basically one full day, and I have my first mesh in the game. I'm not 100% happy with it. I think it's alright. One thing that I've noticed, it does have a little bit of tearing at the bottom when you're in your walk cycle, but it's not that bad. And I've also noticed that some of the actual in-game dresses do the same thing. So I'm not horribly concerned about it. Overall, looking pretty good. Definitely had some issues, but going okay so far. I've spent the past 2 days working on this dress, modeling it, painting texture, messing with UVs, transferring weights, just doing all the things. And I'm so ready to move on to something else, and I cannot believe that I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to remake it. There's some things that I definitely compromised on. There's some things that aren't perfect that I'm not super happy with. And there's a lot of things that I learned just going through this process that I think can be applied and it can be made better. So I'm going to do that. All right. Well, this took way longer than it should have, but I have a model in the game. It's looking okay. It's animating properly. It's deforming properly. That took a lot of vertex painting and nonsense. It was not fun. It's still not perfect, but you know what? It's not bad, which means I'm going to pop out of here, paint some more wrinkles on it, put some laces on, make some more colors, and call it done, because I'm kind of over it. You ever grab the bottom of your dress and have your head size change? That's where I'm at. Also this. No idea what this is about. This is magical. So it's been about 2 weeks. Not only have I not managed to fix everything with my second mesh, it's gotten worse. I think I have an idea of what's gone wrong and what I did, but I don't know. A really big issue with this is that not only is it a very long process to get anything into the game, like there's not a lot of spots between your creation tools to having it completely loaded and saved in the game that you can check on what's going on with it. There's also just no documentation or real straightforward answer to how to fix things if they go wrong. There's no real process that exists for doing all of this from step A to step Z because it's not technically supported. Do you know how cool it would be if I could just make my model and import it straight into the game and see what it looks like and see what needs to be fixed and do everything without having to have an entire another program in between? Do you know how cool that would be? How cool? How cool? Please, Paradox. Please. I'm incredibly frustrated with it, so I haven't wanted to work on it. And Zelda came out, which is not helping productivity, so that's where we're at. So what I'm not doing is giving up. I'm determined to fix this. I desperately want to make some clothes that work and look good. I'm dedicated now. So I'm going to figure this out. Hopefully next week I will have some clothes to share. All right, so after multiple weeks of working on this and struggling and figuring things out for myself and trying to make things perfect and realizing that that's a bad idea, I have 2 articles of clothing that I think are in okay enough shape to share. Like I said, neither of them are perfect. I don't know what happened with the first one, but now the arms no longer scale with the hips. If I ever figure out why that's the case, I will probably fix it or make a new version. There's a little bit of weirdness on the second mesh with the way that it animates around the wrist, but again, perfect is the enemy of good, and if I work on this until they're perfect, it will never come out. So here they are. Next week, I'm hoping that we get to have a little bit more fun and upbeat video about this and talk a little bit more about historical costume and what the things are that I'm actually making. So that'll be fun because this week was just kind of a lot of how much it sucks to make clothes for The Sims 4, because it does. It sucks. It really sucks. It's not really the technical parts of the modeling or creating textures or any of that. It's just the implementation in The Sims and all of the workarounds and everything and lack of documentation. It's just bad, and really looking forward to having a better system with different games.